Hello, art historians. I'm back for our last video for the study of Africa. And there's only one image today, but as you know, I like to break things up geographically, and that left us with just one at the bottom. And so down here in the southern slash southeastern portion of Africa, just above South Africa, is Zimbabwe. And Zimbabwe is the country of Zimbabwe used to be called the country of Rhodesia. And it's really important that you separate the country of Zimbabwe from the people of Zimbabwe because we have to sort of talk about what's going on here. So let's talk about Rhodesia was when it was Rhodesia, this little section right here was established by Cecil Rhodes, as in the Rhodes Scholarship, as a place for, and if you don't know what the Rhodes Scholarship is, I should probably say that it is a scholarship for scholars to study at Oxford and to continue their study. It's a way to help some of the best and brightest all come together at Oxford and study. There are Bill Clinton was a Rhodes Scholar. Pete Buttigieg was a Rhodes Scholar. Wes Moore from the book The Other Wes Moore was the very first African-American Rhodes Scholar. And I'm sure that Cecil Rhodes was turning over in his grave at that, because Rhodesia was founded by Cecil Rhodes as a place for white people to be in control. Cecil Rhodes was an absolute white supremacist, and he developed Rhodesia. He established the nation of Rhodesia in a place that was previously colonized by or populated by the Shona people, they are the people who lived there. And then they sort of left that area and it became just sort of a loose group of other native Africans. And then he sort of pushed them all out and made Rhodesia into an all-white nation. And then just terrible things happened. But Zimbabwe took back its independence and established itself as a more democratic nation, and it named itself Zimbabwe after this artwork that we're going to study. So let me scroll all the way to the end. Whoa, down here to Zimbabwe. Whoa. Okay. So what are you looking at? You are looking at a piece that is called the Conical Tower. Here's your Conical Tower. And the circular wall. Here's part of your circular wall. Your second image is this one. Here's the other view of the wall. The circular wall of Great Zimbabwe. And Zimbabwe, that word Zimbabwe, translates into House of Stone. Okay. So when the country of Rhodesia became not a white run colony, and it set up its independence, it took the name of Zimbabwe after this archaeological site that where people lived from 1000 to 1400 CE, and those people were called the Shona people. And so these are the Shona people. They came from the Sahara area, so across that band where the Sahara Desert is, and they moved south, and they established this royal complex in this area of the world. And so what's interesting about this is that the complex of Great Zimbabwe, the Great House of Stone, is it was made as the kingdom, the Stone Kingdom, for the king of the Shona people. So this was the royal complex for the king of the Shona people and his royal court. And so I want to just take for a second and show you the aerial shot. So here's the curved wall, right? And here's the conical tower. And it's a huge complex. Okay, we're talking, I think it's just said 1,700 acres. During the time that it was populated, there were more than 18,000 people who lived here. And so it's a huge complex, and you can see the leftovers of walls of smaller buildings and a large enclosure here. And it is a royal complex. It had ritual sites, it had cemeteries, it had housing. And this enclosure lies between this round wall here, the circular enclosure, lies between what was where the town of the Shona people was and where the actual residence of the king was. So the king's residence was sort of over here and the town was over there. And this was sort of an enclosed area in the center. So what's interesting about this is, and I want you to look at this because its name is important and its function or its construction is important. Look at what it is made out of. Okay, it is made of granite. And if you have been paying attention at all during our study of Africa, you will understand that the idea of complex masonry made of stones and granite is almost non-existent outside of ancient Egypt. Okay, so we have it up all the way up in Egypt, and then we have it here in Zimbabwe. And it is clear that we have it here with the Shona people in the Great Zimbabwe or the Great House of Stone. It's clear that we have that, right? It's clear we have it here. And it just sort of disappears after this. We're not exactly sure why, and we're not exactly sure what happened to the Shona people. We don't know really where they went, but we do know that this is highly skilled and highly developed stonework. We know that this was revolutionary building technique. We know that when Cecil Rhodes found this, that he put out the concept that people came from Europe and built this and then left because Cecil Rhodes did not believe that brown Africans could have built a complex that looks like this. And so he put together the wackadoodle conspiracy theory that white people came from Europe down to this area that he called Rhodesia, that is now called Zimbabwe, built this huge stone complex, and then went back to Europe. And so Zimbabwe is a really cool, or the Great Zimbabwe, the Great Stone House, is a really cool thing to study because it shows that there was money. It shows that there was a trading route that ran through here. At some point, there was a trade route. They have found enough things in their archaeological digs here to know that this was a stopover along a trading route. And what must have happened is somehow there was a climate change, same as with Mesa Verde. Something changed, probably climatically, that changed the route for trade and took the traders away from this area. And that is what a lot of historians believe happened, is that the trade route shifted probably for reasons of climate, and that when the trade route shifted, that the Shona people abandoned this and moved elsewhere. Now, there's stone available here in Zimbabwe, in the naturally occurring groundy area, okay? But in some of our places like Mali, where we have the Great Mosque of Djenné, there's not a lot of naturally occurring stone, and that's why they build with mud brick. But it's really important that we remind ourselves that this complex, it's a huge complex that had ritual sites and ceremonies and 2 or 3 things that they've called the Queen's Enclosure. That's one of the names for this rounded area. They've also called it the Great Enclosure. But the circular wall here and the conical tower, People believe that the conical tower is indicative of grain. It looks like a grain silo. It looks like where you could have stored food or provisions, right? We don't know if that's what it was for, but it looks like it. It looks like a grain silo. So the two theories are that it was a grain silo, or that it was meant to show the power of the king. Look at how tall it is. It's 30 feet tall. How tall is 30 feet? A 3-story building. It's huge. Okay, look at those walls. That wall is 32 feet high and 17 feet thick. It's almost a 2-story building thick. This is huge construction. This is massive importance. There is not one single straight line there are no right angles or perfectly straight lines anywhere here. That's not accidental. You don't accidentally make everything curved. It's a plan. Okay. So it's a well thought out, well planned, well executed, massive construction that used its materials well. Look at these bricks here, and then look at how they took thin pieces and put them in little pyramid-y shapes and put more bricks on top to give you almost that honeycomb look in the wall. So our theme, we have to group this in with the Persepolis, the Acropolis, like Mesa Verde. This is a planned city. Ashlar masonry, bricks that are finished to have flat sides on them. This was purposeful construction. And we cannot buy into the concept that Cecil Rhodes wants us to buy into, which is that white people came down into Zimbabwe, built this, and left. We cannot buy into that. We have to remind ourselves that the same way that Mesa Verde dried up and the same way that the lost colony of Roanoke moved, and the same doesn't mean that it was aliens, doesn't mean that somebody came from someplace else. This is evidence of a highly sophisticated civilization that used the materials that were available to it in that place to build construction. Now, did these people relocate themselves to someplace else and build other stuff that is made of mud brick because they didn't have access to this granite? Probably. Is it possible that they moved and folded themselves into another group of peoples that were nearby? Like, think about where the Zimbabwe is and think about where the Democratic Republic of the Congo is. They could have moved north and folded themselves into any members of the civilizations that were living in what we call modern day Democratic Republic of Congo. But what we have to do is remind ourselves this is highly developed stonework, that this is a revolutionary building technique that is here. And that when the Shona people moved from here, that the idea of complex masonry moved with them. And so Zimbabwe, the stone house, or the circular wall of Great Zimbabwe, the circular wall of the Great House of Stone that was built for the king of the Shona people, is a really important step in looking at the anthropological development of Southern Africa. And the idea that someone like Cecil Rhodes would come in and say, brown people couldn't have built this is horrific. And so I'm thrilled at the idea that the College Board included this in their study of Africa because of its importance in sort of rewriting the art historical belief of what ancient Africa was like. So that is the end of our study of Africa. I hope that you enjoyed it as much as I enjoy teaching it. It is one of my favorite units in the entirety of art history. I love it. And I hope that you have the opportunity soon to go to the the National Museum of African Art in DC and the National Museum of African American History and Culture and see some of the things that we have looked at over the last few days. I'll see you again soon with our next unit. Bye, everybody.